Good evening, brethren. We want to commend Reverend Shuttleworth and the team on this tremendous effort, and we pray that this event will be part of the process of bringing revival to Jamaica, land with love. I also want to take the opportunity to apologize for the absence of our beloved chairman, Dr. Wayne West. He could not be here because he's currently unwell. We are asking that you pray sincerely for his recovery of health. We are in a time when some societies, having discarded what nature and nature's God have so clearly declared as being natural, these societies are, as a result, descending into a state of moral anarchy where the ridiculous has become the acceptable. In these societies, you are punished if you do not accept the ridiculous and the abnormal. Much of this, not all, has come by way of judicial decisions where judges have overstepped their boundaries. Instead of interpreting and applying law, they are declaring rights where no rights exist. It is called judicial activism. And this is something we have to look out for in Jamaica. Here is another item of concern. There are some powerful nations which are putting pressure on us smaller countries to accept unnatural behavior as being normal, natural, and good. This is what British Prime Minister Theresa May was about when she offered to export same-sex marriage to Jamaica and to other countries. This is what the local US embassy is about as they promote LGBT events in Jamaica. In fact, there was one such planned event last night under the auspices of the US Embassy launching local LGBT events. This is what Canada and the EU are about when they offer aid to us with a certain understanding that the country will move towards accepting these behaviors as normal. Don't be fooled, brethren. There is a price to all these programs. And so we say to our Prime Minister, to the Minister of Justice, to the Minister of Health, Minister of Youth and Education, the Minister of Culture, and all other ministers, don't be fooled. Stand firm for us as an emancipated people who can think and reason for ourselves. I find it interesting that these powerful countries, having institutionalized enslavement to unnatural passions in their countries, now want us to impose this new system of slavery on us. It's called neocolonialism. We will forgive them, as Pastor York urged, but we must take a stand and say to these countries that they are wrong, wrong, wrong. I want to give you just a few examples of what's happening in England, our former colonial master. There was a magistrate, Richard Page, who was removed from the magistracy after making comments that a child will be better placed with a father and mother rather than prospective gay parents. This was considered to be gross misconduct, and so he was removed. Girls are now banned from wearing skirts at 40 secondary schools across England, as these schools opt for gender-neutral uniforms to cater for transgender pupils. Dr. David Macareth, who worked with the NHS as a doctor for 26 years, was deemed to be unfit for work. Why? Because he refused to identify patients by their preferred gender. he decided that people were either male or female according to how they were born. And this just happened a few weeks ago in July. You see, in these countries, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, and freedom of religion are all under threat. Do you understand now when I say that these countries are under a certain type of slavery? They serve a dogma, a master that does not tolerate dissent. Added to all of this is the ludicrous institution of same-sex marriage. Brethren, there are some things which are self-evident, and marriage is one of them. Marriage is a unique institution. One man, one woman for life to the exclusion of all others. Anything else is a wannabe. Same-sex marriage is a fraudulent institution. It is not marriage. So, brethren, we are saying keeping the Bible law is the single most effective weapon we have in this struggle. Any country which repeals this law leaves itself open for all the nonsense which is going on. As Norman Manley indicated on the occasion of the passage of the 1962 Constitution, there will be persons who may emerge destroying human liberty while at the same time paying all due regards to the forms of law. He said it is us as a people who will have to be vigilant. These were his words, and I've used them before in Half a Tree, but I think they're worth repeating. He said, and I quote, "It is the spirit of the people. It is the vigilance of the people. It is the public opinion, and it is a constant awareness of itself." End of quote. So I say to us, let us be aware as a people that our freedoms are under threat, and let us be willing to stand up for these freedoms. Let us be vigilant, raising opposition to programs and policies which are designed to brainwash us into accepting unnatural as natural. We have seen some of these programs in the Ministry of Justice. We have also seen where members of staff of the Ministry of Health have been sent for so-called training. We have seen it in the HFLE curriculum. I also urge you to keep a close watch on the parliamentary committee which is reviewing laws relating to sexual offenses. We suspect that they will be making recommendations which will lead, or could lead, or very likely will lead to the repeal of the law against abortion, prostitution, and buggery. So we need to keep a close eye on that process. Brethren, let us be aware of who we are as a nation, and let us be willing to take a stand as a free people, capable of charting our own journey. However, let us do so without violence or hatred to anyone or to any group of persons. As Pastor Peter Garth once said, it's compassion without compromise. Thank you all very much.
Hallelujah. Put your hands together again for Mrs. Shirley Richards.
Good evening. I want to talk to you briefly about slavery, emancipation, human rights, and the NIDS. You know what I'm talking about when I say NIDS, right? Everybody has heard about NIDS. Well, not so long ago in Jamaica, most of our forefathers and mothers were not persons according to law. The effect was that they could not buy or sell any type of goods or services without a letter or a known mark from their masters giving them permission to do so. They could not participate in court proceedings, be they civil or criminal. They had no right to be paid for their labor, to earn a living, to look after their families. They had no right to health care and no rights as human beings. In our struggle for freedom, there were major uprisings in this country. Taki's revolt in 1760, the Maroon Wars in the 1730s and 90s, the Baptist War in 1831, led by Samuel Sharp, a deacon at the Burchell Baptist Church in Montego Bay, just to name a few. Now, Deacon Sharp's revolt was the largest slave uprising in the British West Indies, and it accelerated the process of emancipation and the end of slavery in 1838. But the struggle continued, and Jamaicans assumed responsibility for their political destiny in 1962. With independence came a constitution which contained a chapter entitled the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedoms. Every person, regardless of race, color, place of origin, class, gender, religion, or political opinion, is entitled to these fundamental rights and freedoms. They are a basic standard which protects our dignity as human beings. You understand that without these basic fundamental rights, you are just like you were in slavery days. In 1962, there was already agreement among nations of the world about the need for this basic standard. In its charter, the United Nations said, and I quote, "Recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world." The United Nations General Assembly passed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which enshrines the right of every person to recognition before the law. Jamaica ratified the United Nations International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and that says everyone shall have the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. So based on the Jamaica Constitution, the Charter of Rights, and obligations under international law, the government of Jamaica is compelled to respect and promote fundamental human rights. And we understand that to mean that there should be no precondition for any citizen to claim and exercise these rights, which are inalienable, which means they cannot be taken away by government or anyone else. A law which compels Jamaicans to register and present a number or a card before he or she can access basic goods and services from the public and private sector runs the danger of repeating history. The National Identification and Registration Act of 2017 imposes a precondition before any Jamaican can exercise their right to access justice, to access health care, security services, housing, and other goods and services. It applies to all Jamaicans, including those who live here and overseas, and registration is mandatory It means you are compelled. You have no choice. Listen carefully. I'm going to tell you, just briefly, the words for Section 71. And you will see them in the media saying, it is not true. Well, this is what it says. Section 41 says that a public body shall require that a registered individual, and that's all of you, a registered individual, submit the national identification number assigned to him or the national identification card issued to him to facilitate the delivery to him of goods or services provided by that public body. And the registered individual shall comply with the request. So, if you are sick and you go to the hospital or the health clinic, they can turn your back. If somebody thief your things and you go to the police to report it, they can turn your back. If you are a pensioner and you go to the post office to collect your NIDS pittance, they can turn your back. If you're trying to get your child into school and he or she don't have a number or a card, they can turn you and they can turn the child back. If you want to work with government, even as a messenger or a garbage collector, and you don't have a number and you don't have a card, they are going to turn you back. Under the law, a private sector entity may require that a registered individual submit the national identification number assigned to him or the national identification card issued to him to facilitate the delivery to him of goods or services provided by the private sector entity. To seduce us into complacency and silence, government and the technocrats have been telling us that the regulations have not yet been passed, and any concern that you have can be addressed if you cooperate and if you participate in the drafting of the regulations. Well, brothers and sisters, this is not true. It is not true, as whatever regulations are passed cannot contradict the clear words already present in the law, which I have just read to you. I am calling upon Jamaicans to remember the sacrifice of our forefathers and our mothers, the price that our people have paid for human rights and freedoms so that we can aspire to live in dignity without permission and without precondition. What government is doing with NIDS is turning the clock back to slavery. Let us respectfully ask the Prime Minister, Honorable Andrew Holness, scrap the law, turn it back, consult the people, and listen to their concerns. Let me hear you say, turn it back. Turn it back! Turn it back! Turn it back! I thank you.